In the previous video lessons, I have discussed the BRICS countries and also some kind of characteristics of the BRICS plus countries in terms of data. So, what about the trade, and particularly how does the EU countries are trading with this group of BRICS plus countries? So, I took some data from the same sources for the report prepared for the European Parliament. And this is indicating, or left side of this figure is indicating the main trading partners of the EU 27, indicated with the blue color. And we see that if we take this group of BRICS plus countries together, then these countries actually form the main trade partner, taking into account both exports and imports. So this shares are calculated based on the sum of exports and imports, and in that sense, the BRICS plus group of countries is even a bigger trade partner for EU 27 than the USA, even by a large margin. But at the same, conversely, also for the BRICS countries, so the BRICS countries are then indicated with the orange color. So the EU 27 is also the biggest trade partner for EU 27 is the biggest trade partner from the perspective of the BRICS plus countries, even bigger than the USA. So that kind of suggests that the EU 27 and BRICS group of countries could be potentially useful trade partners for each other, so that there's common interests between the EU and the BRICS plus in terms of the trade. And the same kind of figure is also the same situation is then with this other look on the right hand side, also indicating this kind of trade flow. So the stronger the connection, then bigger the trade flows are. So if you look at then the development over time, so this figure on the left hand side then indicates how the imports and exports have also grown over time. Particularly if we talk about the imports from the BRIC countries to the EU, then it is the topmost gray color curve. So these are the uh, imports from the BRIC countries to the EU in billions of euros, and then a little bit lower is then the exports of goods to BRICS plus countries from the EU. So we see that the current account balance between the EU and BRICS has been consistently on deficit from the EU perspective. And this is, of course, has large to do with this trade balance of China, because, of course, China is the biggest economy, and a lot of these imports from the BRICS to the EU are actually 63% of that consist of imports from China. And we know that, of course, China is the biggest exporter in the world, but China imports much less. So that also shows this kind of trade balance then between the EU and the BRICS plus. In terms of services, the bottom part of there is of course less than in terms of goods, but there is also some growth in the service exports and imports. So the balance in terms of service exports is somewhat higher for the EU exporting to BRICS plus rather than BRICS plus exporting to the EU. And we see that the EU countries that are mostly dependent on the trade with the BRICS plus are particularly Germany, DE, but then also Netherlands is high. Of course, the Netherlands is very important in European trade due to its Rotterdam port. So then if you look at the composition of trade, so these figures are for year 2022 recently. So interestingly, a large proportion of trade between the EU and the BRICS plus countries is intra-industry trade. So the mechanical appliances and electrical equipment is the biggest group of goods, both for the imports and exports. And both groups of countries are trading in terms of vehicles and aircrafts, pharma, and agri-food products. So this does not look like this kind of trade between, let's say, developing country and developed country, because traditionally, of course, developing countries were exporting raw materials, and developed countries would have manufactured goods. So at least in terms of the composition of trade, that the trade between the EU and the BRICS plus countries looks to be very much intra-industry trade rather than some kind of exploitation of developing countries. So that's also kind of promising kind of prospect for the potential trade, long-term trade relations between the EU and the BRICS plus group of countries. So what about then the currencies? In recent years there have been some kind of hybrids in the BRICS plus member countries, particularly in Brazil and Russia, suggesting that the BRICS countries should also create a own currency to reduce the dominance of the US dollar. So if you compare to the experience of the EU, that of course the European leaders also were one of the motivations of creating euro was back in the early 90s was to like create this kind of alternative to the US dollar. But we see that the dominance of the US dollar remains, and also the common currency, despite its kind of political appeal, also led to many kind of economic crises in Europe. So if we think about this theory of optimal currency areas, then of course we have also seen that the group of BRICS countries is a very heterogeneous group of different types of nations that are located in different continents of the Europe, and so that this kind of creating some common currency or having some kind of currency union for the BRICS or BRICS plus nations would be very impractical, at least at this moment. However, recently the U.S. President Donald Trump was also taking a position or kind of threatening the BRICS countries that if they create a new currency to replace the US dollar, they would face 100% tariffs. And he concluded his message that they can go find another sucker. So of course, even though it looks like very unlikely prospect anyway, this kind of idea of creating a BRICS currency has taken some interest in the political discussions. But indeed, based on the European monetary integration perspective, and I should emphasize that the EU countries are much more closely integrated and have a large proportion of intra-EU trade, and anyway are located in the same continent, and share much more common values. So for this kind of very heterogeneous group of BRICS countries, a common currency would seem like a recipe for disaster. So this completes the international economics course, getting to very recent discussions. So I hope you have enjoyed these video lessons. Send me some feedback if you have some questions or comments. So thank you very much for your attention, and those to take the exam at the Turku School of Economics. Good luck for the final exam. Take care.